Welcome to this evening's installment of Tasting in the Dark. Before you have three critically acclaimed and famous wine tasters here in the Napa Valley. We will be dissecting their personalities as they dissect the wines in front of them. If you would be so kind, lovely lady and gentlemen, please let us know whom you are and where you sit in this big blue marble that we call the world.
My name's Dominic Orsini. I'm the winery chef for Silver Oak Cellars. And, I'm a Philadelphia boy who's been in Napa Valley for about 15 years. Yes, love it out here. Taurus.
Taurus, okay.
I am a Taurus. Got to watch out for us Taurus.
All right, so we already can't trust this guy. Let's get to the pretty little filly in the middle here. Now, Arabelle, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Arabelle, thank you. Welcome to your first installment of ToutSuite, Tasting in the Dark. This is going to be a fairly intensive but relatively painless tasting experience. We are going to ask you, as your fellow tasters, to work your way through the first three wines that are on the table, taking copious and fervent notes to help delineate which one is the most yummy and which one tastes like the wrong end of a donkey. So, please let the world know whom you are and why you are gracing this lovely table.
So I'm Arabella Santiago. I am the Marketing and Communications Director at Cuvée. We're a startup based in San Francisco. And I'm here because I love wine, and I even own the domain name called fullofpinot.com. Do you get it? I'm Filipino, and I'm full of Pinot. So you can tweet me at Arabella TV, and I'm going to be tasting some awesome wine. I'm excited.
Excellent plug. You're going to fit in this group real well. That leaves us with you, Mr. Scott Tracy, longtime veteran of the wine world here in Napa, seasoned professional, and probably the most incisive of the tasters at the table. Scott, where are you from and why are you here?
I'm from California, and I've spent my career primarily in the restaurant business as a sommelier. I have my own tiny little label called Gentleman Farmer.
It's really good.
And, it's good enough that I can drink it, so I'm pleased with that. And I work at St. Supri as a guest experience manager and do a lot of fun things there with food and wine pairing.
Outstanding, sir. Do you feel polished and poised for the experience at hand?
I suited up, yes. I'm ready to go.
I did see you gave a little credibility to the table. All right. Coming over to our wine host will be the esteemed Mr. Peter Granoff. Peter, I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked our one beautiful candidate and two frumpy boys. Where are you from and why are you here?
Well, I'm California native, but first-generation American, and I've been in the restaurant business like Scott. I spent years and years and years. You see all the gray hair. I started working with wine professionally when I was 18, and I'm in my late 50s now, so you do the math. And then a lot of retail as well, online and offline. And I'm the wine host, as you said, for Oxbow Cheese and Wine Merchant in the Oxbow Public Market. And we also have a store in the city in the Ferry Building, Ferry Plaza Wine Merchant, smack in the middle of the lively Ferry Building.
And that's why guys like Peter are so freaking awesome. He is actually in charge of one of the greatest wine programs on all of the West Coast. But he's such a nice guy, he's not going to say that about himself. So, ladies and gentlemen who are out there in cyber world, if they needed to reach you, Peter, how would they do that?
Peter at FPWM.com, as in Ferry Plaza Wine Merchant.
Excellent. Send him your most unusual, exotic, and sought-after questions, and he will be able to provide and ply you with some of the greatest wines in the world. It's a magnificent... Actually, for those of you that live out here in the Bay Area, make a day trip to the Ferry Building and make sure you come late enough in the evening to have a really, really nice flight of wines at Ferry Plaza Wines. And if you find your way up here to Napa, seek him out, because quite frankly, they can put things in front of you that will light up your life. Okay. My apologies. It is called Tasting in the Dark, and our tasters are now deep into the midst. So let's see if we can maybe get a little more personal from afar to our tasters on the table. This Dominic guy seems to be of Italian origin. I'm going to say he's going to gravitate to the lighter, brighter styles of white wine that could be on the table, as we don't yet know. And I'm seeing him as a bit of the outlier at this point.
Well, I think because he's the executive chef at Silver Oak, he's probably salivating over the possibility of food pairings with white wines, which he doesn't get to work with all that often. So I think that's probably where he's headed. On the other hand, he's a Philly boy, so maybe he's just thinking about Philly cheesesteak.
Wow, somebody was paying attention. This is where it starts to get exciting. All right, flanking Dominic on the outside is Mr. Scott Tracy. You can see he's trying to cover up some issues in his personality by bringing the fancy suit to pal around with us monkeys. So I don't know exactly what's going on in that sweet noggin of his, but I do know that when it comes to assessing the merits and capabilities of a great glass of wine, he is the most talented guy at that table. So Scott's he's a steady Eddie. I think he's going to perform. I think he's going to take good notes. And ultimately, I think he's going to pass judgment in a fairly accurate and astute way. That brings us into the sweet treat in the middle. Now, Arabelle, a lovely, unusual name, lovely, unusual gal. Exactly.
Beautiful name.
If you had to classify this young woman just from mere speculation alone, what would you say about that beautiful woman?
Well, let's see. Is she Gen X or Gen Y? She's definitely the most youthful there. And so she's representing a newer generation of wine consumers that are open and curious.
Do you see that? The way the lips pursed right before the glass got there? That's Gen Y. That's Gen Y all the way. Okay.
So, I didn't realize you could spot Gen Y on that basis alone, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm a multi-talented kind of voyeur, as it would be.
Voyeur may be the right word. I don't know. I think that the individual there who's spent the most time probably pairing wine with food is Scott. So I suspect that he'll take that primary approach. He did that for years at La Toque. 14 years, I believe, he was at La Toque with Ken Frank, great chef. He was the man. He was the architect of the wine list and spent a lot of time talking to folks on the floor, in the restaurant, which is a great place to develop that food and wine dynamic.
I remember him walking me through the cruise in Barolo as I was a stumbling child in the dark, hoping for something yummy to grace that plate of braised rabbit, and quite frankly, knocked it out of the park 3 out of 3, that guy. All right, whoa, did you see that? This Dominic guy, early starter, early finisher. Wow, I don't know what his girl thinks about this, but quite frankly, I am, I'm a little reserved now. I pegged him to really come in hot. Wow, right there, grabs the bottle by the throat, dropping it in the glass. I think we've got an overperform. Whoa, he's a rinser.
He's rinsing the glass. Actually, I'm hoping that they do rinse their glasses because a couple of those whites are quite aromatic. Okay. And I think it would help if they did rinse before they move on. Hint, hint.
The subtlety is just so overwhelming. I love it.
Yes, we're very subtle.
All right. Wow. Can you believe the developments at hand here? Scott Tracy lagging behind the 2 rookies?
I think he's just the most deliberate and the most probably thoughtful about the process.
I think you're probably correct. He's definitely the statesman in the group, and knowing his background in the vast array and magnificent wines that he has experienced in the past, of all the palates at the table, I would probably peg him as to be the one most feared.
Now, look at it another way, purely practical. The red flight was on the far end of the table, and Scott just knew he had the most time before they got down to him.
Man, I love how you dissect this moment. Peter, I knew I liked you. I'm starting to kind of have a bromance for you, bro. Okay, so here we go. Arabelle's now pouring the first wine in the second flight. It is a red wine, so I'm picking up, I have this knack for discovering the obvious, that it was white wines in the first flight and red wines in the second. Was there some impetus or direction for which wines were selected for this evening?
The overall theme is in keeping with what we basically do in both of the stores, which is to seek out small production, interesting, offbeat, little producers. We completely ignore the critics, so we're often finding wines that fly below the radar, which is a lot more fun. A couple of the wines here tonight are literally in the 100-case production range.
Oh, wow, super cool.
Very, very tiny, and it's a lot of fun to champion those little producers. The wines typically have a lot of personality, and that's the overarching theme for us is limited production, limited availability, and wines with personality. And this is something that we come back to all the time. Sometimes when a customer will actually ask us, do you guarantee that I'm going to like every wine on your shelf? And the answer is absolutely not, because we're trying to select wines that have personality, and personality by definition divides the room.
I love that philosophy because not only is it the best way to experience wines and see them for their individual and unique gifts, you don't want a wine that's pleasurable to the entire herd. Then you're making hot chocolate. You're making things that are mass-produced and less definitive.
Right. It's like music. It's like food. I mean, if it's got character, if it makes a statement, almost invariably you will have some people who really like it, some people who don't, but hardly anyone is ambivalent. Okay. And that makes for a more interesting experience.
Outstanding. The polarizing elements of wine are, I still see wine, because I'm a bit of a monkey, as one of the last great bastions of Renaissance endeavor, where there is a framework of science. There is the reality of growing a grape, but it's the soul and purity of the artist, the winemaker, the person crafting that wine that ultimately puts the greatest stamp of authority on a bottle of wine.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, something I've been thinking a lot about, we like to say in the industry that we want to make wine accessible to everybody, and we want to spread our arms wide and make it
I'm sorry. Arabelle's lost. Look at this. She's just looking at the wrong end of the glass. Oh, wait, no, that was intentional. Okay. Scott's now taking some pretty furious notes. He's very studious, this fellow, and he doesn't really give a lot up. He's the poker player in the group.
Now, see, if I were sitting where they are listening to us over here, I would just be tuning it out. I'd just be totally blocking out the banter and trying to stay focused. And I think that's what Scott's doing. He's just got us completely filtered out. It's like we're not.
He can try. Wait till I start picking on his shoelaces later, because he doesn't have any. Now, I've got another thing to point out about Arabelle. Did you notice that this girl kind of likes the booze a little bit? That first glass is already empty. That's my kind of girl. I saw her show up with a nice-looking guy. I may try and go for that girl.
I don't see any of them spitting. There's a spit bucket on the table, but nobody's using it.
Simply for promotional purposes. Look at that purse. The purse of Dominic's lips there.
So we got a smile out of them. That's great.
All right. So we've now got the first crack in the facade. Scott sits so much taller than the other people. I just take him more importantly.
Well, I think that's because he is taller.
Okay, back to my knack for discovering the obvious. Thank you. Whew, that was a tough one. Okay, back to Dominic. Now, by the angular rake of his nose pointing at the table, I think he's going to be predisposed to find the glass in his left hand to be the most exciting.
I don't know if you can make that assertion.
And I absolutely shouldn't, but I will anyway.
Okay. I'll go along with that then. I think he's going to prefer the glass to the far right.
Outstanding. Once again, just like the wine polarizing the arena, we have polarized yet ourselves. Right. Wow.
But see, I know what they are, so I'm cheating in a sense, and I'm basing it on what I think is going to appeal. Okay. Given the wines that he works with, that Dominique works with on a daily basis. Sure.
Now, would that be because you are instilling the thought process that familiarity breeds comfort? Or would this fine Dominic, being a Philly boy, who they're a little unconventional to say the least, maybe he's going to root for the opposite end of the equation?
That could be, but I think that what's going to be the divider here on the Reds especially is whether they think about those wines on their own, enjoying it just as a glass on its own, or they try to imagine what they might prepare with it. And Dominique's a chef. I'm sure that's where his head goes most of the time when he's tasting.
Look at that tongue. Look at that tongue. This guy's got tongue talent. Do you see that tongue just sliding over to the left cheek? Like it had purpose, direction. It wanted to go over there.
That's because that's where the Philly cheesesteak is stored.
I got it. Okay. So we've already pegged him as the most, I would say, damn near masochistic of the table, because quite frankly, the man knows the sandwich. He's creating something in his mind. Look at him chewing into the wine. The sandwich isn't even there, and the man wants it that bad. All right, Arabelle's cast her head down. She's trying to cover up her face. I don't think she trusts us anymore. I mean, she has these lovely locks, and I can certainly appreciate being well coiffed as a lovely woman. But really, we can't even see your beautiful smile. Oh, there it is. Got her. Okay, back to this Tracy fella. I still think he should be like a banker. I mean, the suit's throwing me way off.
Well, we have an expression when you're tasting wine for the Master Sommelier exam or the MW exam or in a competitive setting, a banker is a wine that tells you immediately what it is. So maybe he thinks he's found a banker.
Interesting. God, I love having you in this chair. I've interviewed a couple of other wine professionals, as they would be put, but I got to tell you, I'm having the most fun with you. Thank you. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen out there in cyber world, we are closing in on our 15-minute mark. Mr. Didier Lustow, would it be possible for you to let me know how much time we have left so I know how much fun I can make? 3 minutes, people. All right. So that's our girl filling up the glass. Oh, man, I love this. All right. Man.
Going back for more is a good sign. It's a good sign. It either means she loves the wine or she's puzzled by the wine or both.
Either way, I think it's win-win for you. Because if you're bringing a wine that she loves, you win. If you're bringing a wine that is puzzling to her but gratifying enough to go for that second glass, damn, now you got a super winner. Of
course, there's another possibility, which is that she can't believe how awful it is, and so she's going back to confirm her first impression. That's possible, too.
I'm unfortunately well-versed in that idea. Yeah, I can't seem to get away from this Dominic guy. The way he's just hovering that pen over the paper, I don't think he's actually thinking about what he's writing. He's just shooting right from the hip. I think this is a gut. He's done. He's out. Oh, my. 1 minute, 45 seconds left. Scott's out, too?
Scott's put his pen
Oh, my God. Well, I've seen a lot of things here at Tasting in the Dark, ladies and gentlemen. This is an absolute first. I have seen a meteor damn near clip this big blue marble we float around on. I have seen a wolverine try and get it on with a gopher. I have never in my life seen anything as auspicious as this. I think they're done. I'm going to now walk over to the table and begin the unmasking process. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time in ToutSuite history that we have finished under the 15-minute mark. We have to go and meet these people. They are exciting.
Excellent.
All right.
Guys, thank you first and foremost for participating, and thank you for giving us such great material. We've never had a panel as courageous as this. So, Arabelle, as it's usually beauty before the beast, I would like to start with you. If you would be so kind, walk us through 1 through 6, preferably by memory, because Didi is going to steal your tally sheet right now. Oh. And that's where we're going to hope to find, not necessarily that there is a 1 through 6, but was there an all-star leader and maybe a runt in the litter?
Yeah.
Fire when ready.
I thought number 1 was excellent. It was just a very clean, just overall clean and refreshing type of white wine. I love that. I think that, I'm guessing it's a Pinot Gris. It's very clean, but it doesn't have that kind of Viognier finish. I don't know. I'm guessing that. And then I really like, out of the reds, I like the number 4. It's also similar. The number 6, the last one the finish was kind of like a little too sweet for me. It just reminded me of a little bit of like candy too much, and I'm not really much for the sweet wine. So there's like on the white side, I also did not like the sweeter one, which was, I think, was number 3.
Okay, so very much of a dry style where
Definitely,
finesse can maybe lead over power. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Now to you, Mr. Dominic, Philly cheese-eating, tongue-swaggling, fun guy.
I'm hungry.
I'm making me hungry, too. I'm just thinking about cheesesteaks all night. I'm like, I don't think I've had a cheesesteak in about 5 years, but the wines were excellent. I really enjoyed all of them. Starting out with the first one, the first one, and I was leaning towards, it was a Sauvignon Blanc. I found it very refreshing, really like a great wine that I wanted to open up at the end of a day and drink a couple glasses with it just casually before a meal or something like that. Really good acid structure. The next wine over, had a little bit of oaky butteriness to it that really wasn't my style. It was a little bigger. My guess was it was a Chardonnay. I scored that one the second lowest for myself. The third of the whites, really aromatic, just like the explosion of this melon and honeysuckle fruit aroma just kind of really came over me and had this really strong kind of floral bouquet. Really stood out for me.
Outstanding.
And then in the reds, at the beginning of this first one here, I was a little indecisive. I was, at first, it didn't excite me, but I did not like it. I found the tannin structure to be, pretty spread out, pretty medium-bodied tannins-wise, and a whole overall medium-bodied wine. The one in the middle here tasted young. This wine tasted like it needed another 5 years before we're going to open it up.
What does that mean, young?
Young. When wines are young, usually Cabernets especially, and Merlots, when they're young, they're usually released after 4 or 5 years or so. There's so much tannins in them, and the tannins are there to preserve the wine over time. The tannins are really bold, and the oak was really strong. Over time, as the wine ages and oxidizes, those tannins and that oak characteristics kind of fade a little bit. The fruit nuances come forward. For myself, the fruit was a little bit more reserved in this wine. So, for what it was in the glass this moment, I scored this one the lowest. However, I would love to taste it in another 5 to 8 years, and I think, or at least tomorrow.
So are we talking about wine number 4?
Wine number five. And then when we go to number 6, this one was, I really liked it because I identified that one right away. And I wasn't expecting it to be where it was. This tasted like a Pinot Noir to me. I was expecting a Pinot to be sooner in the lineup. I thought it had this one I scored the highest, which was opposite of you. And it had this, like you're saying, that kind of candy finish, but it wasn't sweetness. It was this bright strawberry fruit, that I really enjoyed. And so it's kind of a casual drinking wine. I scored this the highest. If you put food with all of this, I think my scores would have been across the board different. Something about the fat and the salt and the umami and when we're eating and how that just changes every single one of the wines.
You're really hungry.
But I think the cheesesteak, I would rate the cheesesteak would be best with this one right here, though.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Mr. Tracy.
I think it's always good to enter any room hungry. That's the right attitude to have in life.
Thirsty.
Yes, and thirsty, of course. Well, we know what to do with those people who are hungry and thirsty.
Yeah.
And even starving and freezing, we know what to do with those people as well. What I loved here was all of the wines had personality. And I think it doesn't really matter that much whether, I liked or loved any of them per se, but they each made a statement that allowed me to say, oh, that's an interesting wine. There's something compelling. There's a reason why this is selected. And when you're tasting, I think that brings a lot of joy to it. I mean, it's almost like blind tasting, but it's also a little bit like on a blind date. It's like, even if you don't love the personality, you appreciate that choices have been made and the wine speaks to you in a certain way. Maybe it's not a wine you want to have a conversation with for 2 hours, but there it is. It still shows itself. The whites were very floral. When has a bottle lasted 2 hours? Well, not with 5 of us. No, certainly,
Or even one.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Was there a standout or lead-away favorite amongst the 6?
I like the reds more than the whites.
Okay.
I think the whites, like I say, had a lot of personality. They were very floral. The reds, it seemed to me, had more versatility to them. The whites, which I enjoyed, their quality, seemed to me, I think the Pinot Gris, the Viognier characteristics there, call for very specific styles of food. Whereas the reds, I think they're much more diverse in terms of how you would choose to enjoy them. So I had a little more time enjoying the reds, thinking about what I would do with them in terms of what food I'd have with it or how would I enjoy them.
Was there a clear runaway favorite?
If you had to choose. If I had to choose, even though the last 2, I think, were my favorites. I think they're very close to me. The wine is very similar to a Pinot. It's really very bright, no flaws in either of them. A lot of bacon notes here. It had some tannins, but I think with the right dish, it's going to be fantastic. So it's hard to choose between these 2 sisters.
Okay. You have to take one of them out to dinner. Which one's it going to be?
Yes.
You don't get to date them both because that was a huge problem in real life.
A man must have his fantasies. Okay, so it will be number 5. Number 5.
Number 5 for Mr. Scott
Yeah,
Tracy.
thank you very much.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you all very, very much for participating. Mr. Lustow at the esteemed firm of Lustow & Lustow has now tabulated your votes. And I guess we should probably start with the first 3 that finished 6-5-4. At the beginning of the herd would be wine number 2, spoken of as being a bit oaky and possibly...
So anybody have a guess? Not that it matters. This is a Semillon.
Oh,
And from Saxon Ground,
It's a
little
wow.
tiny producer,
Wow, that's
and
very-
it's actually it's a little richer and a little bit more residual sugar than is typical. They're often quite dry, but it actually is it's an absolutely delicious wine with double and triple cream cheeses. Which is one of the reasons we stock it at Oxbow,
Yeah.
Roquefort,
That would
things like that.
make sense.
That it that sweetness is mitigated by the richness of the cheeses, and it's just a home run. And he's tiny. This is probably 150, 200 case production from Sonoma. Interesting.
I'm not surprised that wouldn't enthrall us as tasters quite as much as some of the other varietals that have more personality, because if you're normally judging Chardonnay or Cabernet or Pinot Noir, you're looking for certain characteristics that are very fruit driven.
Right.
This is more texture driven.
Yes, it
And
is.
so when I describe Semillon to people, I say, it's like you're a Halloween party and you didn't see the movie. This guy spent a lot of money on their costume, but you're not sure what they're trying to be.
Right.
So Semillon has that same thing. It's good, but I don't know whether I like it or not because I don't know what it is.
Well, what's interesting is if you think about the fact that Semillon is often a blending component
Mm-hmm.
to Sauvignon Blanc, and what it brings to Sauvignon Blanc is a little bit more mid-palate texture, a little rounder, a little richer, and you can see that in this wine. You took just 5% of that and added it to the average Sauvignon Blanc without the residual sugar. And as I said, this is not typically that much residual. It's usually a drier wine. But you can see how it would fill out the mid-palate of a really racy, crisp Sauvignon Blanc, even in a small percent.
Is there cheese in the bag also? Did you have some?
We have cheese
Actually,
later.
part of the cheese is sitting right here.
Oh, wow.
Okay. On that note,
That's a big cheese.
I rated that the least out of all the whites
Yeah.
because I don't like oaked white
Yeah.
too much. I like stainless steel. So, but that's just because of that's just my taste. So
the
it's
best
not-
part about having a palate is it's yours and it can never be wrong.
Right.
And don't ever let anyone preach to you about the negative merits of having your palate. You like what you like, and you get to like anything you want. I mean, I even like my little nephew, Billy. And he is a real pain in the ass. But he's so charming to me because of the dumb stuff he does, the same stuff I used to do. So I kind of like it. Okay, next on the list was wine number 4.
Wine number 4. This is an interesting wine. Scott will have a little resonance with this wine. This is actually a Sangiovese, but from Napa Valley. It's made by Michele Rodino, who was the CEO of Sansuperi for many years. 97 case production.
Wow.
And what I love about this wine is a lot of California Sangiovese is so rich in fruit that you barely recognize it. You know, Italian Sangiovese is not big fruit wine. They're typically high acidity. They've got firm tannins. And this wine has the structure, the spine of it's more typical of Italian Sangiovese than it is of California Sangiovese. And I thought that was really, the cuttings, I believe, for this vineyard came from Brunello and Montalcino, I think. I've got to go back and look at the notes. But
As if they know anything about Sangiovese.
right.
A bunch of monkeys in some hilltop medieval town.
They've only been working with it for 1,000 years.
Practice,
Maybe they'll
practice.
figure it out eventually.
Okay, moving on. The next wine on the list is wine number 3.
Wine number 3, which is a very aromatic, as Dominique said, incredibly aromatic, in fact. This is a Muscat from Alsace. This is a Grand Cru Muscat from Dirler. And this is also one of those wines that is, like the Semillon, is typically a little drier. In fact, Alsace Muscat can be absolutely bracing in its minerality, bone dry. This happens to be a fairly ripe vintage, so it's a little fatter and richer than typical. This vineyard is also farmed biodynamically, so it's, whatever the vineyard delivers in any given year.
The biodynamique.
Right, and it's a Grand Cru vineyard as well. So I think absolutely delicious. It's a hedonistic experience.
Makes you want oysters with that.
The nose is just so incredibly, it pulls you in the way a bouquet of gorgeous flowers.
Sorry, honey, but we're going to
I'm
hedonism
so
now?
hungry.
Okay, outstanding. All
I
right,
love
moving on very quickly. Wine number 5 next in the alignment.
Wine number 5 will be a surprise, I'm sure, to everyone, which is why I brought it. It does, and that's an absolutely spot-on call.
See, even this you get right now.
But seriously, this
You
one...
got job security now.
I just like soda, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But I
Did
just this one
anybody
makes
feel
me-
like it resembled Nebbiolo from Italy, northern Italy? Piemonte, Barbaresco, Barolo? Well, it's not. It's actually a Naoussa from northern Greece, from the Peloponnese.
Wow.
The grape variety is Xinomavro. And to me, the tannin structure of Xinomavro is very similar to Nebbiolo. It's very firm, it's very aromatic and very pretty in the nose, the way a Nebbiolo can be.
Everyone out there in cyber world, we're going to say this together. It is called
Naoussa.
Naoussa.
That's the appellation.
Okay.
And the grape variety is Xinomavro.
Xinomavro.
Yes.
All you wine geeks out there just learned something super cool. You got something to say at work tomorrow. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. The first runner-up was wine number 1.
And wine number 1, I am thrilled to have it come in so well.
So good.
And you nailed 50% of the wine because it's half Pinot Gris.
Oh, and then the other half, what, Sauvignon Blanc?
No, the other half is Granoff Veltliner.
Ooh.
Wow.
This is a wine that
I
we made.
loved it.
Oh, cool.
All
loved
you
it.
people out in ToutSuite Cyberland are experiencing the greatest tasting we've ever done. Thank you, Peter.
So I must say that the aroma was, it was very light, where you couldn't even sense anything, but then the taste was just so crisp and clean.
That was the goal.
Lovely.
So this is a wine that we made working with the guys down at Tangent and in Edna Valley, Paragon Vineyards, the Nevin family. And it's a blend that we came up with. It's co-branded, so it says Tangent and then Prairie Plaza Wine Merchant Cuvée. And literally, we hit on this. The winemaker came up with a bunch of stainless steel tank samples one afternoon, and I just started playing around, blending. And this was the very first blend we did.
This is your baby?
This is our baby, and ultimately it was the best
Love the baby,
blend.
love the baby, love the baby.
225 cases made.
Hate the bathroom.
Stainless steel, no wood at all. Really crisp and bracing.
I loved it.
And only available at our 2 stores.
Great. That's
Lovely.
fine.
Yes, price point?
Lovely.
$18.
No,
No, it's not. That's awesome.
Oh, you can swear.
I don't-
Holy shit, that's awesome. Wow. Okay, it is time to unmask your favorite wine. Is there any last remark you may care to lavish upon said bottle before we unmask it? Too late. What do we got?
Actually, do you remember I said that Dominique was going to like this best?
You did, actually.
He knows your palate.
Not just how I suggested. It really was the one you liked best? It really was. Okay. This is a Pinot.
Yeah, Mr. Ambivalence, whatever.
I thought everything was a
from Humboldt County.
Ah.
No way. Wait a minute. Don't they consider the cover crop the primary crop?
Well, that's why it's so good.
Herbaceous character to the wine.
You know, they say it takes a lot of beer to make great wine. Well, in Humboldt County, it takes a lot of something else to make great wine. 100 case production. And Joseph Jewell, 2 young guys named after their grandfathers. A fairly ripe style, yes, please. But I think it holds its Pinot character quite well.
What's your favorite?
Oh, that's hard.
You're not supposed to ask the father
Why not?
his favorite child.
Well, he made one of them.
In front of them, especially.
By
It's
themselves.
very sensitive
We have
wine.
a champion, ladies and gentlemen. It is Joseph Jewell.
Jewell or the Muscat. In just drinking by itself.
The Muscat.
With a meal,
yeah.
you know, with some grilled tri-tip or something of that sort.
Wow.
The
Grilled
Naoussa,
tri-tip?
Is going to be really
Naoussa.
nice wine.
Salmon.
Yeah,
So
right there.
I thought this was perplexing, this one, because
Did it perplex you, dear?
Yes, it was perplexing.
Are you currently perplexed?
I'm perplexed by that. I didn't necessarily dislike it, but I was just going with my natural taste. Like, I just felt like it was a little too sweet on the finish, but I didn't think it was a bad wine. I just felt like it was farther away from what I'm used to.
Now, when you say sweet, are you speaking of there being sugar in this, or that it's reminding you of strawberries and cherries and things that you taste too much?
So yeah, no, I mean, I'm less of a fruit forward type of person, and I'm like more of a clean and crisp type of, like, that's why I like.
So do you prefer European Pinot as opposed to American?
So I prefer French Chardonnay over California Chardonnay.
And what about Pinot?
Pinots, I just really know of Californian ones, to be honest.
There's a sort of pie tone to the fruit rather than a fresh tone to the fruit.
Is that what it is?
It's more like a
baked?
strawberry pie.
Yeah,
like
I see that.
So
Okay.
you're getting that concentration of fruit that people respond to.
Yeah.
because we're Americans, we're suckers for fruit. We like it.
There's also something,
But because it has enough acid and it's not over oak, there's just lots to like here.
Yeah.
But it's all personal preference. You know,
Okay.
we have.
But it was very confusing for me. I
But
wasn't sure if I liked it or
It's also a
not.
very good discussion point, though, because there's residual sugar, as you asked, in wines, and the Muscat has residual sugar, the Semillon has residual sugar, and then there's richness of fruit. And from the standpoint of our palates, richness of fruit stands in for sugar. We perceive it as sweet. Whether in a laboratory sense you could actually find residual sugar there or not is academic. And this wine is very rich in fruit. And especially compared to the other two reds where the tannin and the acidity are much more prominent. And those two things mitigate the impression of fruit.
Right.
So they balance.
More European, more earthy,
Right.
more savory across the board.
So I do like the savory more.
Well, you would probably like red Burgundy because that's
Yeah.
Pinot.
Oh, I love Burgundy.
That's Pinot,
Yeah.
and that's Pinot that's not American style. It's definitely more savory and brighter acidity.
Bloody French. Just because they did it first, they feel so entitled.
But there's the whole gamut here in California. This is an unusually ripe Pinot, but there are Pinots out there that get huge scores that are much riper than this. Much riper. And there are Pinots that are completely at the other end of the spectrum here in California as well. Elegant, graceful, delicate, bright red fruit, bright acidity. But the whole gamut.
Wow.
Well, I think the nice thing about all the wines, really, you really get to put your foot on the step of the ladder for all of them. In other words, if you love it, you can identify what you love about it. If you don't love it, you can also identify that as well, which is your whole purpose.
Right.
In terms of choosing wines that have personalities and that have something that speaks to someone. And if they don't, they say, they're able to, when they come back to the store and say, I love it, or it's not quite what I like.
It didn't work for me, and here's why.
And then now you know what they need to buy a case of.
But sometimes when they come back and say that, then I take that on as a challenge, and I try to give them the right cheese, which has totally transformed their experience of the wine.
Oh, boy.
Because that's always possible.
Yeah.
The wine by itself is one experience. The wine in the context of a meal is a totally different experience. In fact, context in general is something that we don't pay enough attention to. Because you change the context, not even talking about the meal, the company, the day of the week, how tired you are, time of the day.
It was raining like hell at lunch today.
All those
beautiful
things.
and
All those things.
These wines were better tasting with them than they were being heckled by you. I just want to say that in terms of how all this worked out.
Why is that not a surprise?
Yeah, well,
wait a minute, you got more critical affinity for the wines when you're not being heckled? But those people wouldn't laugh then. It's part of what this is all about.
I can't imagine why you landed there. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, yes. But your comment is so valid because in the context of the restaurant business, you hear immediately whether they like the wine or not with food. In the retail environment, they take the bottle home and you don't know, were they fighting that night? What happened with the kids' homework is going to affect the wine more than anything else.
In the retail context, you get this all the time. People will come in and they say, we just came back from Italy.
Yeah.
And we had this amazing wine. We were in Liguria. We were sitting in a beautiful seaside, Trattoria, overlooking the ocean. And it began with a B, and et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of stop them right there, and I say, "Okay, were you on your honeymoon?"
Yeah.
Yes. Was the sex really good? Yes. There's no wine I can possibly tell you that's going to taste anything like that experience because it's the whole package. It's the entire package.
And that's a really good package, by the way.
Yes, that's a great package.
Yeah, well, that's why they got married.
Right.
Yes,
right.
But
reading ToutSuite, the fornication station. Here you go.
But I always call that vacationitis. Everything kind of. But I didn't realize I could talk about sex in the same sentence.
Oh my God!
Good for you, the shot
on the show. We got all kinds of things we can bring to bear.
It's on the internet.
Wow, you're actually blushing. Oh my God! So are you? Quit laughing. My kids are watching this. I gotta
put things in
but your nephew's going to be okay with everything. Yeah.
His nephew.
Well, his nephew.
On that note, I think we're actually going to excuse our tasters. Gentlemen and ladies, which camera am I looking at? That one? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to see this installment of ToutSuite Tasting in the Dark. This has been awesome. We look forward to seeing you again shortly. Thank you very, very much. It's been great to have you. Peter Granoff, you have brought the best wines I've ever seen in this program. Thank you, one and all. Wow, what an awesome show. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud. That was fun.